sizes and shapes. But I mean, we've been using them for years. However, some of the projects that are coming to Rockdale County are the hyperscale. Personally believe that's an understatement, but a data center is a secure facility that houses IT infrastructure. There's inside these buildings, there's artificial intelligence, social media apps, flock data surveillance, and lots of other things. So happening already. So already, what's happened already, there's our previous commissioners approved the DC Blocks site that is now over 120 acres. It started out as they've asked for rezoning for more and more and more, and now it's expanded to 120 and a half acres. If you could put the map up on the thing. So I have a map of it. So in that map, you can see that it's also available in that Google Drive folder. That map is also included in there if you want to look it up there. But the blue area is currently rezoned office industrial, and that was rezoned for DC Blocks. So our planning department is also currently working on redoing our local ordinances. The past UDO was amended to include data center language for that project, but it's pretty vague. As far as the specifics on it, I'm still trying to get clarity on a lot of that, of what requirements and restrictions have been put on them about noise, light, how tall they can be, how basically the impact that it's going to have on the residents that live around it. So far, the residents that live close by have complained that the blasting has already started. People are seeing cracks in their walls. We've seen some major complaints, and people that were pretty much blindsided. They had no idea it was happening until they hear blasting outside. Of course, they have attempted community outreach, but a lot of that didn't seem to reach the people that lived directly across the street or next door. So that's the complaints that we've heard from residents at community meetings, at some of the commissioner meetings and planning department public comments. So that one's already underway. There's also been another portion of land that's been rezoned to accommodate a power substation facility that has been approved by a current Board of Commissioners. So both the power substation and the battery backup were both currently in application for rezoning for two parcels totaling 262.99 acres for another data center project. And that one is called Project Rockforge. That one's headed up by, so far on the rezoning applications, it says MMM Acquisitions and Grind Capital. And that project is located on a pretty adjacent piece of land that is at Northwest Farmer Road and Irwin Bridge Road. So all of this land was previously residential. And forgive me, there may be a parcel or smidgen here and there that might have been there was some industrial, but it was a light industrial. And that's what the power substation is zoned. However, the MMM Acquisitions, they're requesting heavy industrial zoning. And adjacent to that property is, Lakeview Estates? On the north end of that property. On the east side, there's a church. Along the bottom end of it, to the south, is a row of homes, single-family homes. Across the street is another house. This project would total, like I said, 263 acres. So that's bigger than 200 football fields. I include along there, and you'll see the DC blocks is already underway. It's pretty shocking, I'll be honest. I saw it for the first time, I think, a week or two ago, and it. Hi, Kim.
Saying that this area, because one of the things that I have an issue with is that everybody keeps calling DC Block like it's the name of the company. What DC Block is just data center blocks.
No, that it is. It's the name of the company.
It's not the name of the company.
It is.
No, it's not. DC Block is not the name of the company. It's data center blocks. I'm telling you, there's no such box.
I see.
What it is, first of all, you're lying too. Just let me
Okay.
There's no such thing as these. Have you, okay, do you know, you have their enterprise number?
I don't in front of me.
Anybody give me their company number, where they're registered, who are unintelligent about what's going on? I'm not saying that about you.
Oh, no, I didn't think that.
Anybody here, I'm talking about predecessors.
I see.
That's all DC Block is data centers. And then the fact that we don't know who is housing these computers, who's the client that's putting these computers, and why are they putting them in areas where there are residential?
That's a good question, actually. Here, Miss Williams, can I answer your question? Okay, so to address that, the and in response to you're asking who the client is, I've also asked them that, and they refuse to answer. I would love to know who the client is. I'd love to know what's going in our backyard. I personally, I would rather not have something kind of nefarious, but we don't know, so I don't know what it is. Here, ma'am, if you don't mind, we're going to do Q&A at the end. Please.
Why would you put something like this in a community where people live? That's not
Yeah, I agree. So I think that, that actually is one of the next topics or next questions is number 3 is why are they coming to Rockdale County? So the information that I've found is that the Conyers-Rockdale Economic Development Council, as well as the Development Authority of Rockdale County, have both made significant efforts to attract data centers to our area since at least 2021. They support these efforts through expedited permitting, tax exemptions for equipment and infrastructure planning. And they've also, they've provided significant tax exemptions. So what's happening is they're going to move in and then not pay the property taxes for a certain amount of time. The understanding that I have is that it's tapered off, like the tax schedule, over 10 years. I don't have a current breakdown of it, but that's my understanding. So, and according to the DC Blocks website, they've also referenced significant contributions to the community that also help them to be accepted, which is donations to local 501c3s. Rockdale County is also located along a major fiber network, and significant power and water infrastructure is already in place. So these companies wouldn't have to pay to run all that out into the country. You know, if it's out in the middle of a field away from residences, all of that already exists because people live there. So, but it's also it's a big deal about the fiber network too, because they're trying to connect from here all the way to the coast. There's a network that runs from here to, I believe, Charlotte. And forgive me, it's on the East Coast. So they've been promised significant tax revenue. However, there's a lot of residents have concerns about that the people were not given a chance to vote on that. And when are we actually going to see that money? What happens if this data center closes before the 10 years or changes hands? These are things that we should have been able to discuss publicly. And, Well, I will say there have been public meetings. However, it's been tricky, even for me, trying to attend these meetings. Tracking them down by reading the agendas and all the line items is really been proving difficult, and I imagine has been very difficult even for other residences who want to follow this stuff. So I understand why it would be challenging to find out. If you had no idea that it was happening, why would you know? Because they certainly haven't been advertising it. However, there is a town hall that is next Tuesday at 6 p.m., right? 6? All right. So I encourage you all to attend and come hear what they have to say. Come voice your opinion about it. They need to hear. Don't lose hope. They need to hear our voices. And, we may not be able to stop this one project, but we need to have the right regulations in place before any more come to Rockdale County. Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Stephanie. She's going to talk about some of the impact of how it's going to affect the residents and some of the specifics on that. All right. Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Stephanie Thomas. I am also a longtime resident. I was telling somebody yesterday, I can't believe it's been 20 years, but it seems like it was yesterday, but it's been 20 years. So I am the stand-in for Ree Isaac. I don't know if some of you all know her. She is the administrator for the Rockdale County Community Resident Facebook page. And so if you've been on her page, she's the administrator, but she's out of town right now. So I have her to-do list, and so I'm going to try my best. So to answer, I think, the question for everybody, This particular forum is really just a group of concerned citizens who got together, did the research, pulled all of the necessary requests for records, and have been spending the last several weeks compiling information so that they can answer questions that many people did not have the answer to. And while there have been several county meetings, one of the issues that you have in the county is that the format that's used is you have to get the notice or the alert on the Facebook page, or you have to know which page to go to on the county. And so it's just very disjointed, and people don't know where to go about what's happening in the county. So this was just a way to try to compile the information in one place. So the questions that were presented for Ree to answer was, what are some of the adverse impacts? Some of the data center impacts on communities involve increases in electric bills for residents. Data centers use extreme amounts of power. Rockdale is advising that Georgia Power is proposing a 3-year moratorium on increases, but what about after 3 years? And so that's one of the questions that has gone unanswered. As residents, while there may be a moratorium, what's going to happen for residents after the 3-year period, and how is that going to impact us financially? These are questions that you would need to ask the appropriate people to get an answer, but we have not been able to get that. What are the approved data centers going to be located? So she's already given you that information. There's a map, there's a QR code for you to review, and you can see exactly where it is. But I would also recommend, if you've never been over to that side of Conyers, drive over there and see. It is something to see. Data centers use a vast amount of water, which in some cases has caused almost a depletion of water supplies across the country. If you guys are looking at different sites, Googling, we love Google, you can see where people all over the country are starting to complain about adverse effects in their community. The selling point for DC Blocks was that they were going to use a closed system. And although that sounds good, when you actually review for closed systems, there's still going to be water loss. We have known for the last at least 15 years, it's been reported that temperature increases are coming for the country. And as temperatures increase, there will be a higher demand for that power usage. And so then, yes, you're going to have to draw water again. The other thing that occurs is there's always going to be a period where you have to have some kind of residual loss, which is called sludge.
And so those are terms that were talked about at one of the planning meetings when we were looking at how do we address that in the UDOs. And when I talked or asked those specific questions, none of the people in the planning office even knew what those terms were. That's a problem. If you're creating ordinances, you need to know about the product that you're creating ordinances for. But that is incumbent for residents who also understand some of these concepts to come to the meetings and explain or help the people that are being given the authority to make rules and ordinances for us, because in 10 years, it's going to impact the people that still live here. Mid-sized data centers use up to 30,000 gallons of water per day, and large systems can use up to 5 million per day. The question that we're having as residents, if we're going to have 7, what does that look like, and what is the total number of gallons of water that you use in that closed loop? And what's going to happen in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years for loss, for sludge runoff, and for all of those kinds of things? What are the adverse impacts for highly populated residential areas, and why don't we want them? So you've heard, if you've watched any of the recordings, people have had a lot of concerns about increased air pollution, noise levels, electric bills, home values. Most data centers use gas power on site for day-to-day operations, creating continuous air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. So that's a concern for all of the residents that are in the immediate vicinity. Just recently, Amazon Data Services agreed in March of 2026 to a $20.5 million settlement regarding allegations that its Oregon data center operations accelerated nitrite groundwater contamination in 2 of the counties there. And so is that a concern for Rockdale County? Are we going to have groundwater contamination? Those are not questions that have been answered. And I think it's because this is a very new thing that's happening, and it's happening really, really fast. And we won't have the data for a lot of this stuff for years. But we need to have systems in place just in case. And so all of the things that are already happening in other cities, other counties, other states, those things need to be addressed here, so that for the people that live here, we don't have a problem in 10 years. Because I don't think, the majority of people, they like living here, right? What can we do to stop more data centers from coming to our residential area? Data center rooftop cooling systems and backup generators can be disruptively noisy. So smaller diesel generators reportedly reach about 85 decibels, levels that can harm hearing. Larger industrial units can approach 100 decibels. So when we look at our UDOs, are we addressing the decibel level? What checks are in place to ensure that, let's say that any of these companies go over what's recommended as safe, what's the recourse? What's the consequence to that? Quality of life issues. We have reports, residents in Virginia reported disruptions in sleep, headaches, and even lower quality of life due to persistent noise from nearby data centers. I attended a meeting for, I forgot the title of it, but it was over on 1400 Parker Road several weeks ago. And I remember talking to two of the gentlemen for Best, and I asked him, they had this really beautiful aerial view. And I said, so in this aerial view, I'm looking at it, I clearly can see all of the houses that are around where you're proposing. So when you guys came in, why did you not already put in place sound barriers? Why didn't you put in place certain things that you know would impact human life? I didn't get an answer from either one of those people. But those are the kinds of things that your planning office should be talking about. They're supposed to safeguard the people that live here. And so hopefully those things are addressed. Excessive land use debeautifies communities. Developers are increasingly seeking large parcels, and so she's giving you how many acres. Well, that's one parcel, that's one company, but we have more than one company. So combined over 300 acres of land gone. From multi-building campuses that allow for phased construction and future expansion. Hyperscale facilities require even more land, with the largest campuses exceeding 1,000 acres or 1.6 square miles, according to a recent report that was done by Wisconsin Farm Bureau. So we have to rely on the data that's coming from some of these other states that have been doing this for a lot longer to help us plan for Rockdale County. Homeowners can see a significant decrease in the values of their home and the abilities to sell their homes at a good price as more people are becoming aware of data centers and are willing to live in areas that, and are unwilling to live in areas that are proliferated with data centers. One of the complaints that we got from some of the residents that are right by the current construction is, you know, as they age, and how do they move or relocate somewhere else when houses are so expensive, and so they feel like they're stuck or they have to take a loss. But quality of life is important for people. Data centers are not mass employers. They've openly admitted they bring few jobs to the communities that they infiltrate. I think one guy said maybe 10 to 12 people. So what was the benefit to the county? It was not employment. Average jobs created on site by a large data center post-construction is very small and require high-level technical skills. They can include titles like the data center technician or the engineer or facilities and maintenance. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Voices for Rockdale. Corliss Turner is also been getting a lot of information through records requests, and I think that we provided, is something circulating or is either in my hand. She asked the question about, this is it. So she asked the question about the tax abatement. So the information that was provided to us was that it was for the first year, the percentage of fees from DC blocks is 0%. Year 2, 10, and then every year after it goes up until they get to 100%. So the question that someone asked at one of the meetings is, what happens at year 10 if they decide to leave? What happens to the land, what happens to the building, and what happens to this great, wonderful revenue that the county is gonna get? All of it is contingent upon the fact that they stay. But during the 10 years, what is happening to our county? And so those were some of the questions that were written out for me to answer and the information that we found. Do we have any questions? Yes, I'll do my best.
I heard somewhere that these large data centers were supposed to build small nuclear power plants right next to them for their energy.
So I think you're referring to the battery energy storage system.
Can you repeat that for the sake of
So I think, the question was, I'm sorry, repeat the question.
I don't remember where the large data centers
Mm-hmm.
were supposed to build small nuclear power plants for their electricity so that they didn't take any out of the community.
So that a nuclear power plant, or what you're referring to as a nuclear power plant, as I understand it, is what is called a battery energy storage system, also known as BESS. I don't believe it's a nuclear power plant, it's a battery. And so what I was told is there is a battery, the BESS was approved, I think 2 weeks ago. And so that particular facility, although it is not required to be next to Georgia Power's power plant, that was one of the selling points, and that was why they wanted it to be in that location, and it just happens to be near the data center. Yes, okay.
So also I have heard of that there are places that use nuclear power to generate power for the facilities themselves. However, that I haven't heard any reference to that so far in what we're doing. As far as I understand, they are taking on the cost of paying for the additional substations that are being built that are adjacent to it to help facilitate the huge power draw, and that the BESS can help if they were to lose power. It's basically a backup power source, because also if there was a huge draw of power from the data center, it would help keep it from causing a blackout across Rockdale County. All right, yes.
That's not quite right. The battery centers are not for the data centers. The battery centers are supposed to be the backup generators for Rockdale residents.
Yes, I've heard conflicting information from the battery center. So what she's saying is that we've heard that the battery centers are supposed to provide backup power for the county. It's been unclear to me how exactly that would work. Like if your power goes out at the house, does this keep that from happening? What is that? And if that's the case, why is it right next to the data center? You know? Yes, sir?
I'm an electrician by trade. I have put in UPS system called uninterrupted power system.
Do you mind if I give you the microphone? That's all right. You go ahead, sir.
It's basically a backup for interrupted power. It has to be for the data center.
Okay.
It cannot be for Rockdale.
I see.
It's impossible.
So,
Basically, the batteries do not provide electricity. The batteries give the generators time to crank up,
okay.
get warmed up, then they shunt switch it to the generator.
I see.
The batteries are just there. It's an enormous amount of batteries in the same kind of system.
Okay. So,
Both batteries.
I see. So what you're saying is, just so I make sure I'm clear, is that the battery center is basically if it were to lose power, if the data center was to lose power, this keeps it from being interrupted while their generators kick on in the meantime. So it's a consistent power source, so that their power is not interrupted. I see. Okay, thank you. That helps. I appreciate that. Yes, sir?
I just was wondering if this BESS system would help eliminate the need for like the diesel generators that they talked about in the paperwork.
Yeah, from my understanding, so the question was that if the BESS would eliminate the need for the diesel generators. It's my understanding that, and from what he just said, is that it's to keep the power from being interrupted, but it would not be able to provide long-term continuous power. This is just until the diesel generators could kick on.
They say on the study it's 216 megawatts.
Yeah,
You know how many generators?
I'm not.
We were putting in 5,000 kV generators.
Wow.
Now you have to convert those to watts. I ain't got all the calculations right now, but yeah, generators are loud. And they put in diesel tanks for those generators.
Okay, so he's referencing the generators that would provide backup power if there were to lose power for an extended period of time, longer than just long enough for the generators to kick on and be restored. So, and he's speaking on how loud those generators are. I also understand that they have to test them regularly. I'm not sure how, do you know how often?
I think I read that they have a lot of time during the day
Yeah,
to be on and they
okay.
can't do it after a certain
Okay. Yeah, that's, in fact, that's one of the things that we want to make sure is written into our ordinances is how often they can do these tests, what time of day, how frequently. If they're exceeding certain noise levels, for extended period of time, what's going to be the consequences? How is that enforced? Yes, sir.
I was just wondering how,
That's all right. You let me know if you find it. Yes, ma'am.
So several questions for them. When we're talking about closed loop systems, that doesn't necessarily mean that the water isn't pushed back down into the aquifer. I know a large portion of people that live in this county have wells that sit on the aquifer. The closed loop system only suggests that the water is being reused in the system. That does not mean that there will not be water contamination. On top of which, the demographic that largely is going to be affected by this, as you said, what did you say? Insidious, encroaching, all of those words, business plan, is that the same people that are going to be affected is the exact same demographic that was negligently affected by biolabs.
Yeah.
All incurred thousands of dollars of remediation costs. So the fact that this is coming on top of those people now,
Yeah, I agree. It is. It's the same area where biolabs happen. These people are still recovering from it, and now this is in their backyards too.
In terms of that, the closed, I mean, you can say closed loop system and
Yeah.
whatever. If you look at every other county, every other state, you're talking about western states who've been dealing with this for a decade, right? They have no water left
Yeah.
in western states, so naturally they're coming here where the resources are abundant, okay?
Yeah. So far.
Our properties are surrounded by the Yellow River. It has to touch the Yellow River once. And that Yellow River runs from coast to coast. It's everywhere. And I talked to a landowner today who owns 40 acres near this site, and I asked him, I said, are you pro or against this? He said, I'm pro, because I lived here all my life, I'm 80 years old. The infrastructure here is so stressed that I'm still paying taxes for school students, and I can't afford to live here anymore for 40 years because they can't fix the problems. So it makes more sense for someone like me to sell my land. And I said, well, if you've lived here forever and you risk all of this damage to the ecosystem, the water table, all the residents, he said, well, it'll go down the river, not up.
Wow.
People are fed up because of the failures of the infrastructure. So like, they're gonna come here and give us a bunch of money at the end of 10 years, so be it.
Yeah.
And as, you know, a person where people like me or people in my neighborhood, we all have young children. We're
Yeah.
all growing food from seed, like we're the opposite end of the spectrum. We're all retired, you know, so we're investing all of our time in the growth of our children, our community. And to have been hit by biolabs 2 years ago, and now here this comes, and, you know, again, as you were speaking when I got here, for people who don't know, I would openly say I was unaware. I intentionally avoid, you know, Facebook and all that. It's very intentional on my part, so not knowing that way was all on me. But the other people in my neighborhood can tell you there were 2 signs on the road that we live off of that were, what, the size of a stop sign? The size of a stop sign, they've been laying cable on that road for 2 years. So we assumed that that's what that was about, and I don't know about you, but I'm not pulling over on the side of the road to read a stop sign with 1,000 cars on it. I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm a little crazy. So to get to a place where then we know there's one site that's happening, to then get a notification, biolabs is just now being heard on Monday in the Supreme Court of Georgia, and on the same day we find out there's 2 more proposed buildings. That's a little innocuous.
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting. I feel like a lot of residents are feeling that way, that they feel blindsided by this.
Did you know anything about data centers? You know, having long known that before, knowing now it's coming into your community, I'm terrified
Yeah.
for a very long time. So
I agree. It feels like the people that are going to feel the impact of this after these are built are being ignored. There's a lot of talk about money that'll come in, and investors are going to, make all kinds of money off of this, but the people that have to live next to it don't feel like their voices are being heard or acknowledged or listened to at all.
Well, and I don't think that everyone understands that DC blocks, so like the first people that came and put their foot in the door were lovely young gentlemen from the town. Look like you, they seem like you, little small investment firms, you know,
Yeah, I think I remember it was initially put up as an office technology park. Yeah, it was, initially, yeah.
by the way, if anybody doesn't know that, is a subsidiary of BlackRock.
Uh-huh.
You need to know. BlackRock is what you should be afraid of in a small town. If you don't know about BlackRock, you should go home and Google it.
I think if you look at the dictionary of the word evil, it also has
BlackRock. They're very scary, trillions of dollars to throw at whatever they want, they don't care. And they're here for your resources. I won't live here by the time all of this stuff starts going, we already were out here. So it's not even about me. But the people in my neighborhood, we have families, people who have lived there for 60 years, are retired. Their houses are paid off. And you wanna talk about poisoning the only resources that they care about?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've seen conversations that a lot of the public, a lot of what people want. We want better restaurants, family entertainment. We want quality places to raise our families. And a lot of those will not come to Rockdale County until our median income is above a certain threshold. And we're not going to attract jobs like that or residents like that or companies that want to build if we're putting this kind of stuff all over the county. What this is going to do is drive down property values and affect the entire surrounding area and the people that live there. And I don't believe it's going to increase the median income of this county at all. In fact, I think it'll hurt us. Yes, sir?
When she mentioned, Sarah mentioned infrastructure, it kickstarted my memory. As far as like supporting the grid, like the power draw that this place is gonna put on not just the immediate area, but the general area as well. A lot of grids have to go through upgrades to handle the new power draw. And guess who gets that expense?
Yes. Yeah, so there's been some, from what I understand, there's lots of careful language regarding exactly who's paying for it and when and where. There's lots of promises that they're going to pay for all of it. And a lot of times what that means is that they're going to pay for the materials and building the actual substation. But then once it's built, and so also there's a 3-year freeze on our power base rates that I believe the Public Service Commission passed not long ago. And so what that's going to do is hold it at a certain level, and basically these will get built, and then what happens to our power bills? So people won't feel it until it's too late, and then it's too late to do something about it. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is related or not, but does this mean we'll have more 5G towers?
I do not believe it. So her question was if this will give us more 5G towers. I don't think this is connected with that. I mean, if there are 5G towers, they may use a data center to process the information that's pulled from that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be more here, but because of that. Yes, ma'am?
I have two questions. One, does anyone know if this specific project, if they have requested trade secrets exemptions, which means that they can operate within their project with redacted everything? Meaning if I, or a friend who's a lawyer at traffic standards, goes to request documents about this project, they have every right under this exemption to redact any information that could negate the boundaries for us.
So far, I haven't run into that yet. I've gotten the planning report from, I believe, the beginning phases of DC blocks and the Treaty Oaks, and there's a decent amount of information in those. I've also requested the planning report for the new big one, the MMM acquisitions, the grind capital one. Yeah, well, they're all hyperscale. The DC blocks is now total 120 acres. Yeah, it's slowly grown from, it was originally, rezoning was requested for a small parcel, and then they got another and another and another. Just different quiet little applications that have also, so a lot of the DC block stuff came through when the previous Board of Commissioners. So, but our current board they approved the battery center. Yes, that's correct. Doreen Williams was also on that board that passed DC blocks and basically all of those phases of DC blocks, as well as the battery center. Yeah.
Because of the sludge, quote unquote, and the closed loop system, quote unquote, the damage to the ecological system and the heat cave it's going to create for wildlife and water and resources. When was the last time that our water treatment facility was looked at, filters changed, checked to see if we are even in any way capable of combating this at all?
I think that's a good question. Her question was about basically assessing the water processing and how we're going to handle this draw of water and how that's going to affect our water processing. I'll be honest, I'm not sure. I think what we could do is request a report from the water department. I have not requested that yet, but I think we should.
where they flush the water into the aquifer. In a place like this where a ton of residents have wells, that means that every time it's cycled through the system, it's picking up anti-scaling chemicals. It's picking up biodioxins inside of its own system, so as it gets blown down into the aquifer, it will then hit everyone's wells. And as that water level decreases, because they're stealing it out from their buildings, it's gonna fill these people's wells. It's gonna end up back in the water treatment facility, which, as far as I know, hasn't been updated in a millennium. And that's gonna end up in our drinking water, where my son takes a shower, where you wash your hands in Old Town at a restaurant, where they're making ice for you to eat tacos on a Tuesday. So, to me, that, I mean,
Yes. Oh, Stephanie was just mentioning, so in response to what you're talking about, the water, that we need to have clear ordinances in our UDO. And I'm coming back around to that because I believe it's very important. Our planning department is, if you're not familiar, they're rewriting all of our ordinances, all the like residential, everything. And it's got a bunch of really neat stuff, a lot of improvements. However, Stephanie and I have attended multiple planning department meetings and have asked very direct questions in about things like that, about like the fire codes and noise, sludge, water quality, water treatment. What kind of research have they done? Have they called the Army Corps of Engineers in for all of these projects to do assessments? And what are those reports? How are they affecting the ordinances that are being written? Because right now, the drafts that I've seen have been very vague and leave a lot of room for, basically, they want to have special use permits for each of these projects where they can get very specific about what's allowed and what isn't. And if our ordinances aren't a blanket of protection for our residents, then who knows, depending on who's in position, what they might approve. Yeah. Yeah, this is also new that,
Oregon and Washington and California and Texas,
yeah.
it's only recent. So there is no legal precedent to refer to. There is nothing legally in place for residents and communities to be protected. So if we're talking about quality of life, i.e. Old Town, it doesn't matter if you're having a concert on Friday. If there's PM 2.5 in the air, everyone's getting cancer.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. 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 So this is a pretty hot topic all the way up to the federal level. There's from the federal level, there seems to be a lot of support for data centers and loosening restrictions on them. And that seems to be kind of coming down the ladder that way. However, you never know with BlackRock. So that's also a thing. BlackRock was the last, it was their last investor. DC Blocks' last round of funding came from BlackRock. So. It's been a timeline of small, little, incremental, little encroachments slowly over the last, 4 years, and where the public has had no idea because it was so quiet. Also happened at the same time as a lot of this was the mining over in the same area. So, and biolabs. So, yeah, while the county commission meetings about this and planning meetings, they were coming in and having, they were talking about it, but nobody knew it was on the agenda. Nobody knew to come to the meetings because they were all paying attention to this other stuff that was happening at the same time. So it got passed quietly. That's a good question. I'm not sure. Yeah. The question was how many schools are within the 5-mile radius. I did do a census look at 2 miles outside of this, basically outside of biolabs, there's around 10,000 people that live in that area, in that 2-mile radius. So, and the prisons over there. Yeah. Yeah, this is not an area that's removed from the population. There's a lot of people that will interact with this area daily. Yeah. Yeah. It's so what Stephanie and a few of us have been talking about, what we think would be a good idea is that we have clarity as residents what's going to be in our UDO. We need to know what the specifics are in reference to these data centers. And we have not been able to obtain that so far. Personally, I believe that they should extend the moratorium on the data center applications, and at least until we can get sound ordinances in place that the residents feel they're being protected well enough. However, if that can't be done, then I believe that it should be extended permanently, because if we can't protect ourselves, then, I mean, this can't be undone. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It honestly, I think it's awful that the same people are still being neglected by the people that are supposed to represent them and protect them and serve their best interests. Yeah. 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 And and how much is it costing the county now in recovering those funds from putting out that fire? Yeah, exactly. It's one thing to have an abatement if it's going to provide something for the residents other than promises of future tax revenue. It's not providing jobs for the residents. And it's not certainly not helping their quality of life improve. Oh, there have been lots of. In fact, I encourage all of you, just go look around. I mean, it doesn't take much. You could throw a rock and hit another county that's going through the same thing. This is happening all over the state. Yep. Yes, sir, in the back. Oh.
Pardon my ignorance, I just got wind of all this just a few days ago. So what is the current status of this? Is there a possibility of intervening and stopping this, or are we just in damage control right now?
So DC Blocks is already under construction. It's approved, and it looks like it is moving forward. It's happening. Treaty Oaks is also approved for rezoning. They don't have building permits and stuff yet. Now, personally, I think the main thing that we can stop is this MMM acquisitions, grind capital. It's Project Rockforge. It's 263 acres. Yeah, 200. That's bigger than 200 football fields. It's almost so. The other projects are along Farmer Road. If you cross over Rockbridge Road, the other side of Farmer Road is where they're wanting to put this other one.
That's where they repaved the road.
Yeah, so they repaved the road over there. Now, if you, in that folder, the Google Drive with the QR code that's also on the screen, if you want to download it. So there's a map in there that kind of shows where all of these developments are and how big they are, and you can kind of get an idea. So the MMM acquisitions, it's at a place now where they have deferred the decision on their rezoning until after the UDO is complete. So it's also in the same month. So basically, they're waiting for the UDO to pass to see if it's going to have language that makes it difficult for them to build before they vote on it or not. Correct. Yes. So the Treaty Oaks was approved by our current Board of Commissioners, as well as rezoning for a power substation. Now, that power substation, I'm not sure which facility it's supposed to serve. When I researched it and looked at the application, the survey was requested by Grind Ventures, which is also associated with the MMM Grind Capital, I believe. So I'm not sure if those two are connected or not. I'd love to get clarity on that, if it's just to basically serve the draw from all of them collectively, if one serves one station, one power thing or not. That I'm not sure of asking when DC Blocks is supposed to be complete. Okay. Here, let me give you the microphone. I would love for you to have it. I think our live stream people would love to hear you.
So my name's John Nix. I have lived here for over 40 years. I happen to be a lawyer. Full disclosure, I've represented the Development Authority for maybe the last 8 years, okay? I am not here tonight for the Development Authority. I'm not here tonight for any other client I represent. I do a lot of land use work and zoning work in Rockdale and Newton and several cities, but I'm really here as a resident. And I can tell you, I was county attorney for, I hate to say this, 25 years. I hate to say it because it really ages me, because that was over 15 years ago. But I've been in a lot of meetings, and I've heard a lot of comments, and I've seen a lot of people upset about zonings that have come to this county. It's very rare to see people that are excited about zonings that come to the county. The people that usually turn out are those that are in opposition, which makes sense, right? Because you want your voice heard. I've also experienced situations where some things are facts and some things aren't facts. And sometimes to get some things really turning and churning for people, a lot of things that said that I wish could be established as being facts. I'm not commenting on anything that's been said here tonight, but we're at a point in our county that we've got to decide where we're going to be in 10 years. So I agree with that comment. We are in a county that is the smallest landmass in Georgia other than Clark, Athens. We don't have a whole lot of land to mess with, right? And a lot of it's already been developed. So from a beginning point, as a land use attorney, I happened to be in the hearing when DC Blocks went to get their first zoning, which is the tract of land that they're developing right now, which I refer to that as the Farmer Road tract. At the time, and still today, the county ordinance for data centers was not very refined. It wasn't really developed, probably because, like lots of other jurisdictions, data centers, what's that, right? So it was allowed, you were allowed to have a data center in Rockdale County under the current zoning ordinance in O&I, which is office institutional. Office institutional typically is a use that transitions from industrial, light industrial, heavy industrial, office, commercial to residential. I mean, that's how they try to stage it as planners. When the zoning attorney got up for DC Blocks, and the crowd, quite candidly, was not in favor of DC Blocks having a data center there, when they were told the alternatives that could be developed there, because that corridor of Sigmund Road, drive down it, it's got a lot of M1 and M2 uses, warehouses, it's got distribution centers. So it's not just like South Rockdale. I mean, it's a developed area, and the future land use map and the zoning reflects that. Now, it's not all that way, and obviously it transitions just like any other. You drive south out of 138 and you get to the Catholic Church and it doesn't look the same. And that's just how land use evolves and develops. And if you have good zoning, it all works at the end. And I'm getting too far on this. So all I'm saying is that when that zoning got done, it got done as OI, and the lawyer argued, would you rather have a truck distribution center with 100 trucks coming in and out every day, because that's what a distribution center is, or would you rather have a building that sits there that has 15 employees? I didn't listen to all of her argument. I was more worried about what I had to present 2 cases later, but you get the gist of how it was presented. And if I had been a resident opposed to it and I had that choice, I might have chosen, I think a data center makes sense. The other thing, and I'll get to my point, everybody. The other thing is that the zoning for the data center for DC Blocks was 2 zonings. The one I just talked about, and then they came back up and picked up the Pippin property. And I don't know if the Pippin property was already zoned O&I or had to come back for it. But it's 2 tracts of land and 2 zonings. I've heard some comments about how do I find out about zoning cases. That's established by state law, and I can tell you I'm not a big fan of how it's done, but the law requires the property to be posted. And you can go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction to see how they post them, but the sign has to be a certain height and size, but even at that height and size, you and I driving down the road are not going to pull over on the shoulder and read the sign, and you sure as heck can't read them as you drive by. But that's what they're there for, and then you have to advertise in zoning. Now, Rockdale County currently has a site, and I've been on it because I look for agendas and I look for planning report studies, and you can access these documents. So if you do it for a living, you follow it, right? Because you're looking for that information. But that information before has not been available on site, and you had to physically go pick it up. So I think there's been an improvement, but how they advertise and how they do it is set by state law. And it might not be perfect, but that's how it is. So,
What site is that?
pardon me?
What is the site you're referring to?
It's Rockdale, she can probably give it these. I go to rockdalecounty.org, and if you go through their calendar, you can find the site. But you can find, it's where they post agendas. And when you see the agenda, you can click the agenda, and it will show you the agenda for that meeting.
Thank you.
Can I say one more thing and I'll go?
Of course.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't get to my point. The point is, the real reason that I am here, because I believe that some amount of data center is intelligent for this county, and I'll tell you why. We talk about the tax abatement. The tax abatement that was given for this property was a straight line 10-year. The Development Authority, that's the most they ever give, is a 10-year abatement. Some are 5, some are 7. The school is not always involved. The Development Authority has a history of not giving abatements for school tax. It's only happened twice in the last decade, and one of them was DC Blocks. And the reason the school board said we're in favor of that, I don't think they took it to official vote, but they were polled, was because of the tax that's going to come to the county. Now, I'm not saying getting the tax I'm getting ready to talk about is the end all, right? I'm not saying that swings the scale where, oh, these are automatic, but I'm saying that it's something you have to consider as a community. Our tax digest right now is 67% residential, and that does not include apartments, because apartments are in commercial, and 33% commercial industrial. Our tax digest is cattywampus, and it's putting the pressure on residential homeowners to pay the tax, because we're not getting the kind of commercial industrial development that will cause it to swing back or swing the other way. DC Blocks got a tax abatement, and I might have this memorized, but let me just tell you. They're building, and somebody wanted to know the schedule, they have They're going to put 5 buildings on the site. That's their plan. Now, whether they do 5 or 4, who knows, but it's 5. No, I'm sorry, it's 4. It's 4 buildings. The Farmer Road property that they have building number 1 already built on.
He's talking about DC blocks, not the.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the one, DC Blocks, and they do have a real name, that's their, but DC Blocks, who's currently under construction, that's the property I'm talking about. And the site where they have 1 building already constructed, that's the smallest building they're gonna build there. And they're gonna build 3 more for a total of 4.
What about across the street?
I'm not familiar with, I'm not familiar with exactly what the plan is there. I've been in conversation with them as a citizen, even though they know I represent the Development Authority, trying to figure out what the plan is, because my interest is what kind of tax relief can we get from a project like this. So what I did is I asked the tax commissioner, who are the 3 top taxpayers, ad valorem taxpayers in Rockdale County for 2025? Who wrote the 3 largest checks? And the 3 largest checks, can you hear my mic stand?
No, I'm not your mic stand.
Can you just hold it 1 second,
I
get my
will hold it
glasses?
for you.
I'll say this and I'll sit down. I'm taking too much time, am I?
Typically, you would only get 3 minutes at a meeting, and
Okay, well,
I'll be
then I'll
honest,
sit
this
down.
isn't your meeting, so, but
No, I'll sit
we're
down.
happy to have the information from you, so
Okay, well-
please, go ahead.
Okay, put me on a clock.
Is that all right with everybody, if we let him speak? All right, cool.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Too much storyline in the front end. So, the first building cost $112 million to build, and it's gonna, the first year on abatement, they pay 0 tax. So that building was finished before January 1 of 2026, so it went on the tax digest. It'll start paying taxes in January of 2027. When it starts paying taxes, it's only gonna pay 10% of its tax bill on a $112 million investment, okay? So in 2027, it's going to pay $157,000 and some change in tax on that building. In year 2, just wait, y'all. In year 2, it's going to pay $289,000 on that building in tax. In year 3, building number 2 is going to come online because building number 2 will be on the digest 1 year not paying tax. Building number 2 is not going to cost $112 million to build. It's going to cost $493 million to build. So it's 4 times the cost of building number 1. Buildings 3 and 4 are going to cost $493,000 to build. So think of it as just a progression. As the buildings come online and they hit that second year, they're going to start paying tax. Now, a minute ago I said that the 3 highest taxpayers in Rockdale County wrote the biggest checks last year. The highest paying taxpayer for ad valorem tax last year was paid $1.1 million. The next highest taxpayer paid just shy of above $1 million, and the third one was at $800,000. Those are our 3 largest as of 2025. In year 3, under the abatements, with just 2 buildings online, DC Blocks will be paying $1,370,000 in tax. That's in year 3 while they're in the abatement. So as their other buildings come on, that tax number's going to be, by 2030, they're going to be paying $2.9 million in tax. They're still under the abatement, but they're now the highest taxpayer in Rockdale County by 3 times. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was gonna say though, how much money can I pay you to drink nitrate in the water?
Well,
How much money would you ask me if I made you drink water with nitrate?
I wouldn't drink nitrate. First of all, you know what I'd like to hear. What I'm telling you right now are pretty precise facts based on calculations, based on what they're investing. When somebody tells me that they're going to have a leak in their closed system that's going to run into the aquifer and pollute wells, and do other things for our water system, Rockdale County is one of the few counties in metropolitan Atlanta, if not the state, that has their own independent water source. That's because back in the 80s, they started thinking about, we're going to have our own independent water source. So Pointer Lake feeds our water system. So if you have water in Rockdale County, it comes out of Pointer Lake. They renamed it Pointer Lake. Well, if you have a well, and I guess if you're on an aquifer, if you can establish where the aquifer is, and if this loop does break, then it might pollute the aquifer. I don't know, but I got to stop. I can't answer every question. I'll be up here all night, and I might not answer them the way you want me to do it anyway. But the real situation is, and this is what I would like us to do as a community, is balance. Balance the good and the bad of a particular use. In this instance, is a data center. We should be balancing the good and the bad of a distribution center that handles 300 trucks a day. We should be balancing any kind of heavy use that comes here. But you got to balance it, but what do you balance again? I think one thing you got to balance against is taxes. Because how we're going now is not going to swing the digest. It's just not. And you've got to have investment. And this investment they're going to be the number one taxpayer by 2030 with only 3 buildings on the ground, and they're going to have an investment in sales tax. They have to pay sales tax on Georgia Power. When 216 megawatts goes up in all these buildings, they will be paying an estimated $6 million a year in sales tax. 1/3 of that sales tax, by law, we're one of the 2 counties in the state of Georgia that has host tax. 1/3 of that sales tax has got to go to host. Host is specifically dedicated, can't do anything else with it, to reducing property tax on single-family residential. That's what it does. When we adopted that back in the 90s, we were one of 2 counties that had it. When we adopted it originally, we had enough sales tax float to where we were, and the digest was the right way, where we were paying everybody's property tax there for several years. We weren't paying your school tax, but they were paying your local government tax. This has the ability to bump that number from 54%, what they're collecting now, to like 65%. When DC Blocks completes their construction of these buildings, they've got to put equipment in them. The equipment going into these buildings is estimated to be $950 million per building. When you add together their investment in 3 buildings and the equipment, and that's over 10 years because they got to refurbish, but when you add all that money together, you're talking about right at $5 billion of investment, and that's just the first 3 buildings. I take that back. The electricity thing I gave you was all the buildings running, because that's 216. But this is just the 3 buildings. Well, I take that back too. Their total investment will be something like $5.2 billion, and that's when all the buildings on site are built. I've been thinking about this too long. We don't have anybody in the county that's ever brought that kind of a project to the county. Our projects are typically less than $100 million that we do through the Development Authority. A lot of them are under $50 million. Think about the difference in a tax bill of a $50 million project and a $5.5 billion project. It's real numbers. It's going to change the digest. It's going to cause us to be able to reduce the millage rate. It's going to reduce the pressure on residential taxpayers because the digest is not going to be 67-33 anymore. It's going to be something far different because it's going to swing back maybe even below 50-50. There's nothing on the horizon for us that can do this for our county. Nothing. Nothing. Because it hasn't been done in 40 years. Why is it going to happen tomorrow? So I think that's one thing you got to put on the table when you start talking about whether you want a data center or not. And you got to weigh it against the bad. I'm not saying they're perfect, but I don't think any industrial development we've ever had here is perfect. And to compare it to what happened, and it's terrible what happened with the fire, but that's an industry that was having problems. Someone said it earlier, something should have been done about them way before this last fire. Way before this last fire. But that doesn't mean every industry is that example. An apple is an apple, an orange is an orange. I mean, every industry is not the same. So I really think everybody should dig in deep about balancing what this will impact the digest, and it helps your property taxes and what the community can do for you. So, being the most popular person in the room, I will now say goodnight. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. And sorry, what was your name again, sir?
Who, me?
Yeah.
John Nick.
John Nix. Okay, thank you. I didn't hear at the beginning.
Mr. Nix. So I understand the tax digest and the revenue that is being generated is that people made a decision without considering them as human beings. I don't believe that 2030 will be great and wonderful if you have people who, for whatever reason, are sick or dead or dying, and we don't know that any of that will happen. But what happened was you had people who were voted in to honor and respect the people of the county, and they made a decision without doing that. And that's why people are so upset. I totally understand. My mother was a computer analyst all my life. I know all about what you're talking about. I am not unlearned in that area.
Did I make you think?
No. But for people who are listening, there are some people who may not understand it. But the bigger issue for the people of this county is you all made a decision, not you, but higher ups, made a decision that would impact people in 10, 20, and 30 years and didn't even care what people thought. And that's why people are so upset now, because they don't know. The unknown is always scary, always.
And I don't disagree with the word you said.
Yes.
But I also think it would be fair to everybody. And I think it would be fair for the county as a whole. And we have to address people that are impacted, I agree, a different way. But it'd be fair for the county as a whole to look at this factually, right? Because what I've seen in the articles that I've read about data centers and what I've seen with people in opposition is that they're picking something terrible that happened in California, and that could happen here. They're picking something that happened in Nevada, that could happen here. And
Are you saying it couldn't happen here?
no, I'm saying, do you think, the conditions are
What
different.
they're doing is they're utilizing the information that they have.
Right.
They're trying to decide if what is going to occur here will happen. What happened somewhere else will happen here. So let me just say, I am born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. The data center that is there,
No, that's a terrible one.
it's a horrible experience, because if you've never been to Memphis, I grew up on the well system. They are already having issues, and guess what? It hasn't been 10 years. The people in Memphis are being impacted very negatively. You can Google it, YouTube it, Instagram it, and because they are impoverished, nobody cares.
Well, they should.
They should.
And they should, yeah.
Fear that is occurring here is because people don't know. And to be honest, none of you will know. You won't know. You won't know until something happens, but nobody wants anything to
Do
happen.
you even know what I do?
Well, no.
And who I represent?
All right, I think we're getting a little too personal here. I think we're getting off track. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Nix. All right, he's dipping out. All right. Here, just one real quick before we get into more questions. I wanted to add a little bit to what he said, because he references the investment amount as this huge investment, that these things are, this amount of money is being spent to put this here. Are you seeing any of that money? The construction people are getting paid. How many of those people are Rockdale County residents? There's lots of money being made off of this, but how much of it is actually going to reach the residents? You and you and you and you and you. Not at the top. Now, and I do understand there are promises for large amounts of tax revenue, but at what cost? These are all people that are going to feel the impact of this and have been residents for decades. And, you know, if you've lived in a place for 50 years, you really don't care if your property taxes are gone down if you can't even live in the home that you know, what good is that if your quality of life is out the window? They want to move, and honestly, I feel like that's what they want these people to do, is just give up and move and sell their land cheap so they can put more of it and more and more and more until we say enough. So, and I agree with you. Here, one moment, because she's had her hand up first, if you don't mind. Here, do you mind? Go ahead. Yeah.
All of my respect to him, he's not being tricky. However, I say again, I don't have any shoe in the fight because I'm not going to be here by the time that it impacts where we are. But everyone that I live with in my neighborhood, people who have
Yeah.
moved here.
Our kids.
I had a personal conversation with someone maybe 15 years ago when I first moved here about what we needed to do to draw the kind of residents that we wanted in Conyers, people like from my area of the world. And I told them a very short list of things that could make that happen. And we're in a place now where my neighborhood is full of those people. People who have lived here forever, who have raised families, they're retired, they're going to be here forever. They paid into this town, they believe it. People who have moved here and retired here, bought properties here on the water, in the woods, intentionally to raise their families and to invest in this town. These are the people that are being impacted. Okay?
Yeah.
They're growing vegetables in their backyards. We have to submit a request to have a fucking chicken. I have to request the county. We're actually if I had less to have eggs. However,
Wow.
BlackRock subsidies can put into retirement town promises of far off 10-year tax abatements. Like, our kids will be sick and people will be honored.
Yeah, exactly. What good does it do
And these are this
if nobody wants to live here?
people who are making these choices, other than working in Old Town, their homes aren't going to be impacted. They don't live over there.
Yeah,
Think about
I
all the
agree.
thousands of people. And I'd also like to add, there's a large portion of people that are unable and unwilling to come and comment about this topic because everybody in town knows there is a large demographic of undocumented people in this county. Those people will never show up to a county meeting or a poll board to voice how negatively impacted they are, their schools are, their children are, and they pay fucking taxes.
Yeah, they're residents, and they, yeah,
They will never show up to a community meeting to say this is inherently racist, this is inherently pointed at a low poverty demographic, a county that is 90% people of color. They will never show up to say that because they don't want to get hauled off and arrested. So they've already taken a third of the voices of the county off the table.
yeah, yeah. And just so that the live stream could hear, it's basically she's speaking in that specific demographics seem to be disproportionately affected by this, and targeted. Yeah, that this is coming to lower income areas with working class people who aren't able to come to these meetings, 10 a.m. on a Monday, or what was it? There was one Economic Development Council meeting at 7:30 in the morning with a $20 ticket fee, by the way. Yeah, and the speakers was old DC Blocks and Georgia Power marketing representatives. Yeah.
Insulated and well-kept people who take care of their homes. Our neighborhood is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We close Halloween trick-or-treating and Christmas events because we avoid what's going on in town and take care of our subdivision. We're back up against water. We do
Yeah.
all those things for us.
And
These are the neighborhoods that are not part of that low poverty demographic that are also getting hit. People who are paying taxes, people who are voting for you, people who are in town spending money buying local. We conscientiously spend money in local businesses because we care about where we are and we want to show our children and our families that you spend where you want to be.
yeah,
This is the antithesis of that.
yeah, and
Selling out your hardest working division of human beings for what?
yeah,
When none of you live
It is. I agree. And we're not anti-development. There are, and it's not like the only alternative is a distribution center of trucks. So you know,
300 towns
yeah,
with children that are gonna populate our schools and pay taxes.
exactly.
It's something that's gonna poison our water and kill our kids.
Exactly. This land was all zoned residential. It was full of houses. It should be full of more single-family houses, personally, or something that is not gonna basically drive away the residents. All right. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, I know that they're not going anywhere, so I think the thing that we need to do, if it's not already in place, and I know that I've attended the UDO meeting, but the ordinance that we need to put in place, is there a task force? Like, do we have a residential task force saying the insurance that we want to be insured, we want our water protected? We want
I think
our
that's a great idea. Here,
utilities
Stephanie.
protected. We want noise protection guaranteed. We want air quality and health protection, because it's not going anywhere. We want property value protections. We want zoning and setback requirements. And then we want people who live in residential areas right next to those centers, they need to pay those people above market price to relocate. That's just the bottom line.
So
You cannot
currently-
just move it- Wait a minute, do we have these people
No.
in place? Because I'm telling you, these meetings, nothing's gonna happen. These people are billionaire, mega billionaires. How do we protect ourselves and our children? Because I'm 67 years old, I've lived here for 21 years. I'm not going anywhere. Thank God my daughter got out of this community alive, but I'm not going anywhere. But in 10 years, I will be 77. And then, so I love this community and I'm not going anywhere. So we just need to get some insurance that they need to set up some kind of a program for health.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, these insurance companies are so crazy how they pay claims. They may not pay claims for environmental health issues. Okay, how do we protect the value of our homes? Because I understand what he's saying. It is gonna balance some stuff out, but it's not gonna balance anything. It's not in my house. And I can tell you right now, it's already affecting the internet. Because when they put that fiber optic and we have the highest bandwidth, it is horrible.
Yeah.
Because something is already going on, because I work from home, something is going on with the internet, and it's already been affected, and the fact that we can't get rain here, I hope it rains tonight.
We're already in drought.
We are already in drought, and y'all in Rockdale County already sent a notice out about the drought. So before we even get to summer, we won't even be able to water our
Listen,
yard.
last year, the World Health Organization declared that we are in global water
yes.
bankruptcy. Not just county, state, whatever, the world. We have hit the threshold of water reserves can never be replaced the way that they are currently.
So how do we
We're
fix
talking
this?
about
How do
allowing someone
we get some insurance for
take
this?
over 1 million gallons of water a day.
How do we get, I agree with you, but how do we get some insurance?
Okay.
Yeah, what do we do?
So let me just say this. So I've been going to several planning meetings, and what I'm finding is people are not attending the meetings when they are trying to make the changes to the UDO. So how many people here have ever gone to a planning meeting that was specific for UDO modifications?
What is UDO?
That's our Unified Development Ordinances. And the current people in the planning office, they are proposing, or they have already proposed that we, I think the vote was yes, but I think they have decided that they're going to do away with all of the old UDOs, and they are representing the new UDOs. There's a draft online, rockdaleudo.com. It worked, I just did it.
Get a special task force or resident.
So rockdaleudo.com. You can see the draft. I want to say it's about 450 plus pages. What I recommended to people that I know is go into the draft, find the thing that impacts you, and read the language. Chapter 9 is about data centers, and we're spending a lot of time on the data centers, but what I am telling people is you need to know what the UDOs say, because that's not the only change that they are proposing. And so find the thing that will impact you and your life and see if there is language there that you don't agree with or that would negatively impact you. And when they have, or if they have another planning meeting, you should go. You should go, because the last one that I think we both attended together, you know who was there? DC Blocks and Best. They invited them to come, and Grind Capital. They invited them to come. I was very direct. I asked a person in the planning office, why are they here? And why are they being allowed to go around the tables and make recommendations for the resident changes? And this is what I was told. Everybody is welcome. So if you are taking comments from the very people that people are having an issue with, and you're writing on the paper that this is what they think should happen in Rockdale County, that's a problem for me. But that was what was allowed to happen. But to their point, we didn't show up. I think it may have been 15 of us there.
I didn't know about this.
Right.
That my daughter sent me.
And that's part of the problem. That's been brought up as well. So Facebook is great. It's a wonderful tool, but it also uses a metric. And if you aren't on the site a lot, you're not going to see the post in real time. So the recommendation was to get on Jennifer Rutledge's mailing list. Jennifer Rutledge. She has you can send her a message and she'll add you to her mailing list. It's on the county page.
She does a real good job of getting the information.
Right. And so she can send information about all of the meetings that are occurring, but it really is kind of incumbent upon us to also participate and to have a way that we can convey what our concerns are. They're changing not just data centers, they're changing rules for development, they're changing rules for the chickens. Everything is in the UDO, and the previous UDO, as I understand it, has already been voted as null and void or by a certain date or something, I don't know. But if you don't speak up now, before they present the final version, I don't know if that's really their fault. Like, we have to participate.
It was my understanding that the one we went to was one of the last public hearings.
Yeah, that was my understanding too.
I haven't seen any more on the calendar.
No.
Which,
So she's saying the one that we went to was the last one.
so as far as I understand, the last public hearing that I've seen on the calendar was April 14th. And correct me, I may be a day, it was around April 14th. It was the day after they approved the battery center, actually. So,
No, it was the day before. It was the Thursday before.
no, because I got the planning report at the vote. That was the first time I saw the planning report for the battery center was they read it out loud. The time on the vote on the UDO so that the public has an opportunity to really scrutinize it and get their questions answered. Because even attending those meetings, I was not able to get direct answers from our planning department. I had questions about fire codes. There wasn't a representative from the fire department there. I've been told that he did show up after he was requested at another meeting, one of the other ones. But, yes, ma'am.
Before I leave, may I please get the contact information for whoever you're talking about? Because again, I will accept responsibility for intentionally avoiding.
Yes. So,
And that I was unaware until,
yeah, I had the same experience.
that part as a resident that I avoid Old Town like it's my job. But, thank you. But I would like to say that I know a gajillion people, and every single person that I spoke to about this said, I don't know
started the moratorium in January. So they put here, just for the youth. They put the moratorium in place in January. But the current ones were already, especially the one for grind capital acquisitions, the big one. That's DC Blocks. That one's already done and happened. Is under construction. Yes. Yes. There's another one that's, it looks like twice as big. On new applications. It's already approved and it went through. There was no anything. It just kind of happened. But they put the moratorium in place so that they could write the UDO ordinances.
Across from the old communications center, the road that the county can't even keep trash off, or keep crime off, they're selling to have this huge fucking building.
Yeah, it's at the intersection of, what is it, Farmer Road and, it runs between Farmer Road and Irwin Bridge Road down to Rock Bridge Road, I believe. You can see it on that map in that folder too, by the way. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to back up a little bit. Now, we've got DC Blocks. It's here. It's not going anywhere. Under construction. He's explained that, Mr. Nix explained the tax benefit from all of this, great, wonderful. It's here to stay. The best is here, it's here to stay. Apparently. Okay, I don't know about that part. But there's this other MMM. We have got to stop. And that's what we need to focus on right now, is stopping that. We also need to focus on the UDO before July comes.
And we need residential people. Nobody is gonna everybody's not
Yeah.
reading 400 pages.
I agree.
That's overly ambitious, because people don't have time for that, so we need to
So-
get a task force.
And that's sort of, kind of what this is, honestly. This is our beginning phases and getting out into the community.
So first of all, you guys, we had
Now, we need to fix
we
this.
had a committee for the UDOs that did not go as planned. Meaning that there were people that they brought to a building to sit in a room, and for the first several meetings, they did all the talking. A complaint was made, and then they allowed us to participate to a certain level. But as I understand it, I've done plenty of stakeholder committee. I was on that committee. That's why I'm speaking. I've run stakeholder committees. I've been on stakeholder committees. That was not a stakeholder committee. The process, the people who live here were not really allowed to look at any of the proposals and make comments or changes before it was presented. That is not a secret, because we complained about it.
But what can we do to fix that? 'Cause we got
I don't know.
interested people in here. When
I don't know.
we shut
Maybe you
down.
can give us a paper, we can put our names and numbers down, you can call it.
We intend to keep in touch with you guys. I have a Facebook group. It's called Say No to Data Centers in Rockdale County. At the very least, it's a method of communicating with a big group of people. Getting in touch with everybody in one place has been kind of tricky.
So you can't do anything when you don't have the people who control that are not us.
Yeah.
That is, the planning board is run by the Board of Commissioners. So
Yeah.
how do you say to the Board of Commissioners, we would like to hold on some of these changes? You send an email, you show up to the meeting, that's all you can do.
Yeah. Got to show up. So on that, there is a town hall on Tuesday. It's, do we know which building that's being held in? In the Assembly Hall? The auditorium? Okay. It's at the auditorium, starts at 6 p.m. I encourage you to show up. You can also email our planning department and county commissioners. All emails are going into public record, so that's something. But I really encourage you, share the information that you learned today with other people that you know that might be concerned. and encourage them to show up and ask questions, you know. I don't know what the capacity is, but it's a former church, so it's pretty big. Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing I was going to mention just real quick while I have the microphone. It's for Jennifer Rutledge's email, if y'all want it. It's JENNIFER.RUTLEDGE@rockdalecountyga.gov. And if you want, you can come up. I'll give it to you after the meeting too.
So let me also just say, although I know she said she was not here to speak, she has been listening to you this whole time. So we do want to recognize that our chair is sitting here, Chairwoman VanNess, who has listened and heard, and I'm sure taking it all in. She's taking it in. All right.
I have one question from the live stream too that I'd like to.
She's been here the whole time.
Tuwanya was at the NAACP meeting that I attended earlier in the week also, which this topic was discussed at that NAACP meeting earlier in the week. So that whole committee is fully aware that Rockdale Ranch and NAACP, they've sent out an email to 600 email recipients about this meeting and about the 12th meeting. So
I love it. I'm glad to hear it. And honestly, that's really the goal. We want people to have the information and make an informed decision. You know, this shouldn't be happening without our knowledge, and we shouldn't be surprised by these things. We should have an opportunity to participate. Now, there are meetings, but we haven't found out about them. There was also a question that was from the live stream of were these type of meetings taking place before construction began, when the county was in the planning stages? I don't recall hearing about it until work began. It's another person that's frustrated that didn't know any of this was happening. I've seen, there have been occasional town halls that I've attended, as many as I have been aware of. All of the ones that I've been to have been led by DC Blocks representatives, and we get the same kind of sales pitch, and then it just ends, and there's really no reference or acknowledgement of the impact to the residents who are actually going to live there, and really nobody ever speaks up at the end of them. It's pretty wild.
We need to get some assurance that some of these things that we're concerned about
Yeah.
are taken care of. We just can't keep having these meetings.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's frustrating.
These
But-
meetings are not impactful unless we are getting some of the things that we want.
Well,
Some of the things have been addressed, Kim, but there are other things that need to be addressed. So like,
Well, we can only do, I
But in
believe,
the-
the first things first. We gotta tackle one issue at a time. And the biggest issue right now, I'm telling you, I already see some of the impact, okay?
yeah.
Like she said, the biggest impact is gonna be water and electricity, internet for people who work at home, or retired people who wanna watch TV or whatever, people who live by themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not
And the noise. That's something I feel like gets overlooked quite a bit, is the noise from these things. It's significant.
right away because we have an aging community,
Yeah.
okay? And
So-
Janice, can we get a task force? I'm gonna ask Janice right now.
Well, I don't think she's here to answer questions tonight, but I do appreciate that he's here to hear from us. Here, real quick, before I pass it off, I just want to give a heads up that we do have some bad weather on the way that is approaching quickly, so we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. If you want to stick around and have conversations, of course, feel free at your own risk, but we're going to try to wrap this up probably in the next 5 minutes, if you don't mind. All right. Thank you.
Good. I just wanted to say real quickly, I too got frustrated with the way things were, and I decided to run and try and make a difference. These data centers, they were in process in 2023 before BioLab and all of that. So I didn't know about a lot of that either, so I understand the frustration. You know, in a lot of ways relate to the party, right? But we want to work to do things better for our community. Better also means trying to keep people in their homes. So there's a balance that has to be struck. We have to find what that is. I can assure you, I love living in this community, but I also want to make sure it's safe as well. And so coming together is going to be a lot better and more efficient for everybody's time. Okay? So to be efficient, we can do research, but I would strongly suggest that you try and focus on what is here and worry about the rezoning possibilities of after the moratorium. We put the moratorium in place so that we could preserve time for us to look at best practices. I've been to Lowndes County in Virginia. I've done a ton of research myself about applicable things here. So I do want the best, but there is definitely a lot of information that you guys haven't even talked about tonight, and there's a lot of mistruths. And so coming to the commissioners angry and upset, probably not the most efficient. Let's talk about facts. You know, I thought I was doing a good thing by sharing information that we had been given and adding additional research to it. Unfortunately, it was seen as I was helping them. That was certainly never my intent. Unfortunately, there's, 30 people in this room, 30 people are going to come up with different research. So talking about specifically about Rockdale County and what we're dealing with, it would probably be the most efficient use of time. So if there's people that are pertinent about information and want to work on a focus group, I would suggest that you come to the Planning Commission on May 14th. I did text them to see if maybe there was a way to add an additional UDO meeting, but we do have the collaborative firm that was hired to help guide that. So everything that you mentioned about planning department may not have actually been the planning department running it. It could have been the collaborative firm. And I know that I personally fired somebody that was on one of the meetings. Yes. Right. Yes. And we haven't been as thrilled with our experience, and we've made them work longer, stay longer to try and get some of these things right. But anyway, that's part of our other thing of trying to make contractors do what they're supposed to be doing to fulfill ours. Oh, they have a variety of things. So I don't know, but there is a gentleman that I've met there, a commissioner, that's got a white paper out that is worth reading. And I know that I met with him, and I've heard him speak at events and things like that. So, it's like any technology, it can change so quickly that, what we've seen is they're trying to do the latest and the best and the most sustainable. And there's a lot of pressure from the state, the Public Service Commission, everybody. But remember, Georgia Power made over like $4 billion this last year. And so I don't hear anybody screaming at Georgia Power, but believe me, they're a player in this game, and they're a big player. And when DC Blocks came to town, they apparently had to make a $52 million payment just to even get in line, as would anybody else. So you've got to have deep pockets. And Sarah mentioned BlackRock. I was not aware that they came in at the last end for DC Blocks. But we are committed to trying to listen to people. It is frustrating when people online that haven't been to any of these meetings say they don't even listen to us. And I'm like, I've never even met you. I've never seen you at a meeting. I haven't had an email. I haven't had a phone call. So, we're doing our best to try and filter.
Yeah.
I have one all the time like
Right, I stopped coming to the meetings, and I was not aware any of those things were occurring. However, at the point that we become aware, we know better, we do better.
That's right.
And
I agree.
so now that we know, we have to work together, because that's really the only way that we're gonna come out of this thing that we're projecting as a huge mess, is we have to work together for the betterment of all of us.
Yeah.
So that's why I am participating.
Yes, I agree too. And for just repeating for the live stream so people at home could hear that basically we need to all come together and work with our commissioners and see what we can do to get protections in place. I would love to see some of the research that the reports and stuff that the county commissioners are basing this information off of. that honestly has been a major point of frustration for me because I've asked for that and haven't gotten it. I've filed planning, like reports, records requests with the Development Authority, as also with the Planning Department, and have not been getting certain, very clear answers.
There are three different bodies.
Yeah.
Resident-led bodies, that if everybody would work together.
Yeah.
Because I had something we discovered yesterday that you didn't have.
Yeah, with the tax stuff, yeah.
We have to figure out
Yeah.
how to work together, so that we all have the information that we need.
Agreed. So, and to that, we need help in researching this. I appreciate everybody that showed up today. A lot of us have been doing our own independent, just filing records requests and asking questions and showing up. And that's what this meeting is about, is to share that information and hopefully inspire you all to do the same thing and show up to these meetings and ask informed questions now you got a good starting point, and hopefully we can grow from there and find a way to make this something positive for the community. So what I understand is that there is the town hall specifically about data centers is on the 12th at the auditorium at 6 p.m. The meeting on the 14th is
So you guys, Board of Commissioners meet on Tuesday. Planning Commission meets on Thursday.
on Thursdays,
There's a meeting on
Tuesday, and the other one's on Thursday.
And the other one is always on Thursday, once a month at 6 p.m.
And are they at the same place?
Depending on, depending on the capacity, if they're expecting a large number of people, sometimes they'll move it to the auditorium because there's more people. But they're right next to each other, so, yeah. So, on the 12th is the town hall at 6 p.m. at the Assembly Hall, and then the 14th is the Planning Department. Is that a voting session?
The
Auditorium, excuse me, the town hall, it's next door. And then is on the 12th, excuse me, on the 14th with the Planning Department, is that a voting session or what is that? Is it public input or?
They will have public input, and it is, I think it's a voting session, but it only gets voted on to send it on to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so what she said is that they are going to be voting on whether, and so is that whether to send it forward to the Board of Commissioners. So is the understanding that they've got a draft of the UDO basically finalized from the public input that they've received so far, and this is a hearing to decide if they are ready to send it to the Board of Commissioners to be voted on. Is that correct?
I'm gonna double check on that. I'm trying to see if we could have maybe another UDO meeting, but I'll have to let you know.
Okay, so she said that she's going to check and see if we could have maybe another UDO meeting, but we're not sure on that.
To send it back to the Planning Commission for consideration, conversation before it comes back to us.
Okay, that's the meeting, we need to be at, to hear that conversation.
You know what? I'll have an answer for you on the 12th. I'll
Okay,
be able to get one tomorrow, but
thank you.
on the 12th, we'll tell you about that.
So for the live stream, Commissioner VanNess said that she will have an answer about the next, I apologize, I'm trying to be consistent. Would you mind clarifying that?
I don't know if I can clarify that.
Okay.
But I'm gonna ask you something.
Yes, ma'am.
I've done a lot of lobbying work in the past and worked on legislation, but why don't you guys just go to the source and get information directly from them and ask them all these questions?
What do you mean? Which source?
If you're concerned, invite whoever Grind Capital out here, invite.
Well, it's because it's because I sat in the county commission meetings when they gave their presentations, and I've been on their websites and spoken with the representatives in person multiple times. And that's true. Maybe they should. And I honestly, there have been multiple meetings, but they were led only by those people. And that was the only perspective presented to a large group of people without much feedback. So it was very frustrating.
So
Yeah.
one of the last meetings that they had was at 1400 Parker Road, that side. I didn't know that's what it was. I thought it was one of your meetings.
Yeah,
And I
it
walked
was
in,
one.
and so it was. And so this was the atmosphere. You walk in, they have, lovely food laid out, beverages to drink. They have all of the different tables. You walked around to each table, there was a representative that was there talking, and to her point, of course, their pitch is always going to be shifted to them. And so you were allowed to ask questions, you were allowed to give perspectives, but that meeting was for them to convince you that it was a great thing.
Yeah.
The
And
meetings that I went to prior to that, where they were in attendance, the pitch was for them to convince you that it was a great thing. When I went to the community meeting that the planning office had, that we were both in attendance,
For the UDO.
for the UDO. And the question that was put before us, the few people that came, was, we want you to walk around and we want you to tell us the things that you find that need to be improved upon or make recommendations. Well, there were probably 6 or 7 individuals that you clearly knew who they were, and they were also allowed to go around. And the only reason that I made a comment was because I went to one of the tables, and there was a comment on the board that Director White wrote, and I said, where did that come from? And his response was, I don't know. Well, you do know, because you knew all of the people in the room that you invited. And so that's misleading versus just saying, maybe we shouldn't have allowed them to make recommendations. Because if the point of the meeting was for the community to make recommendations, that's really the only.
But that's not always what the UDO is about. The UDO invites people.
It does.
oh yeah.
HOAs,
Well, this specific meeting was there were tables specifically, not that one. There was one where one table was specifically to discuss the battery centers. One was for data centers. However, I was not a, yeah. But when I asked direct questions, they weren't able to answer me about specifics in the UDO. So it's been frustrating.
Confusion has been that people have said, like we've led a meeting where all they do is present, and I'm like,
Oh, no,
one
no.
town hall meeting where they did come and speak is a small portion of it, but it was not the whole meeting by any stretch.
I'm not
So-
talking
Yeah.
about those meetings.
But Stephanie, they
No.
can't even address some of the stuff that we're concerned about.
Yeah. When we'd ask them directly, it wouldn't give us direct answers. It was very frustrating.
Because they weren't even talking about the resources.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the people who were,
Let me make one statement.
Yes, sir.
The UDO office, and I think the commissioner will agree, is your most important meetings there, because that's where you're putting the
yes,
laws in.
Yeah.
the laws.
I agree. I agree.
They come approve.
But you
Yes,
know
sir.
what? Most people say, I'm not going to a planning meeting because they have no idea.
Yeah, they don't realize how significant it is.
I'm gonna say something, I'm going home.
Yeah.
I was on the first UDO commission that met out here, and we drafted
The first one?
the one that they're tearing up now.
It's gone.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, we would love your input on the new one, for sure. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to offer,
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
as I said, owning my portion of being unaware and avoiding it at all costs. I would like to say that if there is any way that I can lend myself, my time, my mouth, every human being that I know to influence what is happening from here, my blood, sweat, and tears, if you know me, I'm a bulldog. I will get involved, entrenched in this. If you know me,
I believe it.
glad to be a part of whatever you need me to do. And beyond that, planning meetings, again, if we're having a meeting on the 12th, and you said you'll let people know tomorrow, which is awesome.
That's
We're
for the
having-
commissioners.
We're having the commissioners meeting on the 12th to actually hear what.
It's a town hall.
Yeah.
But Sarah, let me say this, let me say
For the first time that people are gonna be aware that they have a forum
Yeah.
heard, right? At least from the people.
This
I
is,
know.
this is,
No, I don't mean
yeah, but people haven't been aware of it.
You haven't
I think we're going to wrap it up.
Let me say this, I feel like we are heading against the wall trying to get people involved during our whole administration. Volunteer applications have been open. We've created the water, sewer, and stormwater committee. I mean, we have done so many things to engage a wide variety of people that can have input. Those are open, transparent meetings. So, we need brilliant minds. Sure. And even at the planning commission, I mean, they'll probably be overwhelmed because they're citizens listening to it. They're not elected officials. Does that make sense? So they will listen to the things as a recommending body and make a decision on what to do.
Sure. And I think to your point of why don't you go to that and ask questions, to me, I didn't vote them into a position of power in my community. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't give a fuck what it is.
Here, just real quick, I believe we're going to wrap up the live stream. Again, I'm going to come back a little bit. So we're, as of right now, the next meeting is May 12th, Town Hall at the auditorium, or in the auditorium at 6 o'clock. So be there.